Welcome to the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Foundation afternoon tea with the SDGs. That's a huge mouthful. I've got a cake, cherry cake,
cherry
and I've got a drink. I hope you have as well. My name is Caroline Whitehead, and I'm your host for this evening. And this is Sally Midget Conway. Say hi, Sally.
Hello, everyone.
Right, okay, we've got a host of guests here to talk to you about their projects that they're working on at the moment, but also as well about the projects that some of them talked to us about in 2020. In 2020, we did the second SDG event, and that second SDG event culminated and combined with the United Nations 75th anniversary. And some of them are here with us today, which is fantastic. We have the 2018 winner of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Awards, which is Feluke Michael from Nigeria. We'll be hearing from her later. So this is not an in-depth conversation about the SDGs, no. This is about talking about some of the projects that are out there and, of course, how you can work with it within your projects, within your business, and at home. So in 2015, the United Nations came together in Paris, and they came together and talked about the Sustainable Development Goals. That's how they brought the agenda together. The 2020-30 agenda provides a unique foundation to build consensus among governments, civil society, and academic institutions about how to tackle the biggest challenges facing society, while at the same time, its underlying logic and modalities are contested. So, without further ado, I hope she's here. We have the president and the CEO of the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Foundation in America. Are you here, Lisa Jones? Have we got Lisa? Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Matthias, because I know that Matthias in Switzerland was in Geneva yesterday. Matthias, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Okay. Matthias, do introduce yourself. We met in 2019 at the United Nations. Please introduce yourself and what you were doing in Geneva.
So my name is Matthias Burkhalter, and I'm the president of the Women's Brain Project, an international non-profit organization based here in Switzerland. And so we were at the International Development Forum, the first one held in Geneva by the Swiss government. And we have been discussing the usual issues, whether we can reach the global goals by 2030. And also a big theme was, of course, the ongoing war in Ukraine and what we can do and what will be the negative effects, and this mainly again on the shoulders of the most vulnerable of our societies and the poorest people. And so I have met there for the first time with Adam Rogers. I guess he is also here today, and
I hope Adam's here today.
Yeah, and so we've had quite a good time, and it was very valuable and very good conference, and held hybrid, of course, but for the first time again, also physical.
Yeah, and what I remember from the time that we met, just after that, I think you went to Greece or somewhere, because it was more to do with the climate side of things. You were picking up plastic off the beach.
Exactly.
Tell us about that.
Yes, exactly, because I went there and I thought it's a bit boring to be on the beach, and so I discussed with the local management, and I was also a lot cycling around course. And it was a tremendous mass of plastics and debris all over the place, and so I decided to pick up plastics, and so this was an idea I was trying to repeat the year after, but unfortunately due to COVID, we could not do it, but it will be planned again for to do next year or this year. I'm sorry, this year in 2022, and we had quite a big response, and people were very grateful what we've done.
And so to align it, basically, SDG 13, which is climate action, that was one of the things that you were looking at. And of course, yes, exactly. SDG 14, which is life below water, SDG 15, which is life on land. So basically, doing what you did, it was the three of them.
Yes, and it was also good for my physical activity. So it was also SDG 3, so for the health.
Yes, definitely. And one thing
I lost about 5 kilos during this holiday.
Brilliant.
Normally I gained it, but yeah, it was quite.
You lost about 5 kilos.
Yes, it started very little, but then it was, and I mean, we should educate people not to do this. I mean, and. It was, you could not imagine the mountains. Unfortunately, I do not have pictures ready, but I should have one. But you cannot imagine the mass of plastics and televisions and tires lying around this beautiful island.
Yeah. So the thing is globally now, people and children are breaking up from school and they're having holidays with their parents, some of them for the first time. And if they wanted to get involved, what would you advise? Obviously,
just
with the parents,
take a bag and walk and just fill it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So Matthias is advising, if you're going on holiday, a beach holiday or anything, and you've got a bag, just take a bag and do a little bit. That tiny little bit will help in relation to SDG, which is SDG 13, which is climate action, SDG 14, which is life below water, because it affects the oceanic life, and SDG 15, which is life on land. All of that, that little bit, that's you doing your small bit while you're on holiday. Yeah?
Yes, it has a big effect.
We're going to swing back to you, but because what I want to do is I just want to sort of turn to Sally and sort of get her thoughts on this, because you've got a little one, haven't you? How old is Ted now?
Ted's 5. And funny enough, I was just thinking, Matthias, about the certainly about life below water as well as the conservation side. Is there's a book that we got that actually was from my daughter, who's 12 now, Evie, but she passed it on to her brother, and it's called Somebody Swallowed Stanley, and it was by a marine biologist who was really passionate about the whole kind of peace and climate action, and we read it a lot, and it's basically the story of a plastic bag that gets thrown into the ocean and where it ends up getting in, and teaching the children to understand the impact of what plastic is. And we've had lots of conversations at home about it, because it's provoked a lot of thought and a lot of discussion. So it's a really good book. Unfortunately, I can't think of the author's name, but it's a young woman, and it's called Somebody Swallowed Stanley. It's a very good book, so I definitely recommend that. But it's quite good fun.
Thanks, Sally. Thank you, Matthias. We're going to come back to you at some point later on, but please do stay with us. Thank you. So I introduced Sally. Sally's just made a comment here, but also Sally is marketing director for the Zebra Partnership, and she'll be monitoring your comments. Please put some comments in the chat, and she'll give you any sort of hashtags. What hashtags did we decide?
We've got, I think, SDGs.
Yes. So hashtag afternoon tea with the SDGs. That's one hashtag.
Yeah.
Hashtag flip the script.
Yeah.
Hashtag
SDGs 2030.
Yeah, and SDGs 2030, which is the deadline for us achieving all 17 goals, which, by the way, have 169 targets. Will we get there? That's debatable, but we'll make a good run for it. Okay, who have we got in our guest green room ready to come forward? Have we seen Lisa, gallery? Right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go to our very own, poor thing, she was supposed to be in the studio with us. I'll go to our very own Professor Jackie Carter of the University of Manchester. Her SDGs are 4, 5, 10 and 17. Welcome. There you are with your SDG grid. Welcome, Jackie Carter.
Oh, hello. It's lovely to see you both. Hi, Sally. Hi, Caroline.
Hello.
Hi. So share with us, Jackie, your work that you feel connects with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to share more than a word, Caroline. I know how much you love your quotes. So I've actually got 3 quotes that I want to weave into this conversation, if I may. And the first one is, education is the most powerful weapon we can use to prepare our youth as leaders of the future. Have you any idea who said that? Back in 1990. I'll put you out of your misery. It was Nelson Mandela, and he spoke those words 4 months after his release from prison, when he was talking to a group of young people at a high school in the US, Roxbury High School. And I use that as a foundation for a lot of what I do, because, as you know, I'm a teacher now in university, but I've taught in schools and colleges. And I absolutely believe, in the way that Matthias was saying, that education drives everything, and it certainly drives progress. So I really love that quote. I'm going to move on quickly to another one, if I may, and then I'm going to answer your question. So in 2016, somebody said this, again, talking to school pupils in an inner city school in London. So there's a clue. And this person, she said, through my education, I didn't just develop skills. I didn't just develop the ability to learn, but I developed confidence. Have you any idea who said that? I think you'll know.
Honestly, Professor Jackie, I'm here to host. I'm
I know
here to use my brain.
Oh, I know it's not a quiz, but these are beautiful words, and that was Michelle Obama. When Michelle Obama was
I was going to say that, Jackie, but hey ho, Carol butted in.
And the reason I'm saying that is because it's not just about education, and it's not just about formal education. It's about developing confidence, and so that brings me around to why I do what I do. So I, you know, from humble origins, I've sort of stepped into developing a program with my undergraduate students where I teach them in the classroom, and then I put them into the workplace to help make change. And they do that through looking at data, and one of the areas of data they look at is the SDGs.
That's fantastic. And I want to ask what's next, because you've got your book, haven't you? Yes, please do tell us about your book.
I will show you my book, and those quotes are taken from my book, because every chapter I start with a quote that's important. So that's my book, and my book is called Work Placements, Internships and Applied Social Research, and I wrote it because I wanted to tell the stories of the young students who are doing this work for real, and how it can actually make a difference and make a change. And a lot of those young people, when they finish their formal education, are going into the workplace because they really want to make a difference to the world that they live in. And I want my legacy to be to support them in enabling them to make that difference. And as I've said, a lot of it is not just about the SDGs, but it's about inequalities. So inequalities, and particularly gender inequality and educational inequality, drives pretty much everything I do. And, you know, from the bottom of my heart, that's where I feel I can give most in my time on this earth. So that's what I'm doing. And how can people get involved? Well, if anybody listening on this call, speakers or people listening, wants to find out more, they can find the book on all good online booksellers. Just Google my name, Jackie Carter, and Work Placements, and get in touch, because we want to make this program global. We're already taking it to Latin America. So we're working in Colombia and Mexico and Brazil.
Did I meet some of your students? I think I did.
You did. You came along to one of my. Wasn't that a wonderful afternoon?
It was a wonderful lecture, and it was great. And I met some of your Latin American students, which was fabulous.
Yeah, and we need more of that. We need more. You know, partnership is goal 17, and we need to do more joined up thinking. Definitely.
Well, we'll do that. We'll do that over one of our breakfasts, Jackie.
We will. Can I have my final quote? Because this to me.
Go on. Go on,
Right.
don't ask me who said it though.
Yeah.
No, I won't. I'll tell you. So Helen Clark, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, who I've met, she's a wonderful person, says, persistence pays off. If enough of us are determined to build a better world, we can make a difference. The fruits of that are the legacy we must leave for future generations. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I love that quote so much.
Fantastic. You'll have to text me those quotes because you know what I'll do. I'll write it in a LinkedIn post and you'll have to text me those quotes and I'll use those. Thank you. We'll come back to you, Professor Jackie Carter here in the UK. Okay, so I didn't say where we were coming from. We're coming from Manchester, the United Kingdom, the centre of the universe in our eyes, actually. And we're coming from a grade 1 listed mill, textile mill. That's where the studio is. And I want to thank your Manchester media for hosting us today for this event. It's fantastic. They're a fantastic team and it's great to work with them on a variety of projects. And the aim of this event is to invite you, the viewers, if you have not done already, to embrace the SDGs and to align them with your projects. If you're not sure how you can do that, ask the panel of experts, take down their names, get in contact with them. They're more than happy to help you and be inspired by their stories and their international network. And we've got two individuals in the studio with us today. Who have we got?
We have Heather Waters and we have Lee Chambers with us. So they've got their cups of tea. They've not quite got the cake yet, but they hopefully will be getting one shortly. And before we continue, I just wanted to say that when you have got your hashtags, please tag those hashtags and show us a photo of you with your cup of tea or your beverage of choice and your cake, just so it can help us all feel together in this with what we're doing today. And so the other aspect of what you might have heard at the beginning and what we mentioned around the hashtags was flip the script. So that's hashtag flip the script. And this is a film that we saw earlier about the UN's SDG action campaign that calls for a journey of democracy and advocacy and action. The very first step is changing how we talk to each other and work together to find solutions. And in doing so, we will inspire others to do the same, which of course is very much what we're doing today. And advocating the flip the script means rethinking, recalibrating and reimagining our societies and economies to achieve the SDGs. So Carol, like she mentioned earlier, there are quite a number of targets, quite a number of goals, but they're all very meaningful and very purposeful and also very specific. And that's really important because all of these aspects need to change. So taking action means behaviour change at all levels, transforming the way that we do things to implement the change that we want to see. And that's why we're here today, to try and see how we can do it ourselves as much as encourage others to join us in the SDG action.
Okay, thank you. And before we ask Lee and Heather a couple of questions to find out about their projects and their business, we've got a film gallery. Are you ready for the flip the script?
Brilliant.
Hello, want me to go over there with you?
I love that. I was dancing to it and like I'm ready to flip the script. So everyone's a change maker in their own right, and by sharing what you do to flip the script and act for the SDGs. That's another hashtag actually. Hashtag act. Number 4 SDGs with your peers, family, friends. You can start a butterfly effect for positive change. And talking about positive change, Heather Waters from NatWest. Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Got my brew.
She's got a brew. She's in the studio. It's lovely to have you here from NatWest. A fantastic change has happened, and that change is a report tell us about that report.
Yes, so you're talking about the Rose Review, which was launched back in 2019 here in Manchester and named after Alison Rose, who's the chief exec of NatWest Group, but actually did the work on behalf of Her Majesty's Treasury. So they recognised in 2018 that there was a gap that not as many women compared to men were starting businesses or scaling them. And also it's recognised at that point there was a gap that if women did do that, £250 billion extra would be in the economy. So they did a review of all the different reports that have been done over time, and they've been done for many years, including ourselves, where they looked at why there was gaps, what those gaps were, and what were the barriers. But they were just reports and they were just stored away, to be honest. So the aim of this one was to actually go, right, how do we change this? So they did some more research again, and in 2019, they brought the review out, and the review of all those reports. And what it showed us that actually there was key barriers there that why women weren't actually starting and scaling the businesses. And I've just touched on the top 5 really, but the number 1 by far for women starting businesses was the access to finance, understanding the funding landscape, and also the kind of their adversity to debt, to actually taking funds on. And we would say it's more about risk awareness rather than adversity, really. You know, it's about being quite savvy rather than actually going, I don't want it. But also the word debt is not a great word to use, and how we can actually reframe that and use different language. Second one was the family care responsibilities. They tend to still, to this day, are with the woman, and whether that's with children or whether it's elder parents, which is becoming more of a, as we've got an aging population, an issue for some people, that is really highlighted. And in COVID, that was highlighted even more, that responsibility. After that came the, looking at roles and responsibilities, but also looking at role models as relatable role models. Who's out there for women to aspire to that's current but relatable again? So somebody who's in business but not a multi-million pound business, someone they can actually recognise themselves in and go, I could be that person. We then looked into the state of actually getting mentors and business support. Actually, where do you go to get them? If you don't know, you don't know. So, it's almost like that ball of wool. Where do you get the thread to start it with? So a lot of this came down to lack of confidence, and that horrendous, the expression they've got regarding the imposter syndrome was recognised there. Now, women don't own this. We all actually align ourselves to it and go, that's me. When I've heard that description, Lee's nodding, so I think it's not just a female thing, it's a man thing as well. But if you look at those kind of barriers there, they're actually, it's like we recognise the barriers now. So we know where the gaps were, we recognise the barriers, but what is it we can do differently to overcome them, to make that difference? And I think things have moved forward. So one, on the funding side, they created a code for the investment world, because that was particularly far behind from a female founder point of view. So the Investing in Women Code was set up in 2019, and there's 134 investment institutions now, financial institutions signed up to it. And that's about them recognising within themselves internally, where are women in that institution? Where are they on the board? What level are they? And actually, if you go for investment, are you actually going to get a woman sat on that panel when you talk to them, particularly in the VC world? And actually, it was really low numbers. The most shocking part was actually less than 1% of VC funding was going to all female teams.
Wow.
Less than 1%. Now, there was an issue that women weren't going for the funding, so the pipeline is low as well. So to be fair to the VC world, because the confidence in, will I get that funding, or they went to one pitching and they didn't get anywhere, actually put women off. So the Investing in Women Code is a twofold thing. It's actually, how do we help more women to get ready to go for investment? And is investment right for them? Back to the funding landscape, do we understand the different kinds of funding? But also, how do we change that investment world so it's far more female friendly if you're going forward? So that's one of the key marks. From last year in 2021, we just had the update on International Women's Day. And actually, 145,000 more businesses were created last year by women in the UK.
In 2021?
Absolutely.
Wow. Sort of the pandemic was still on, and that's just absolutely amazing. Can I just say that anyone watching, this Rose Review is a UK review, just for the United Kingdom. But of course, if you're watching from another country, you can go online and see the Rose Review, and you can probably start, like I said, the butterfly effect in your own company, in your own country, to actually take a stand and to try and make a difference.
And confident, you're
Yeah, I was right. Yeah, country and company.
Absolutely.
No, you're quite right. I was actually at the House of Lords a couple of weeks ago, and there was representations from different countries from Asia, and actually some of their work, they're ahead of us.
Wow.
On the funding they got for women, the interest rate they charge them, the money they've got earmarked purely for female-owned businesses. So we are learning from the world actually back into the UK. And actually, if you look at the first Rosy View, we are compared to Europe, Canada, USA. So we're trying to learn from the best in class.
Yes.
To learn those best, but obviously our market isn't the same as everybody else's market. So we'll share knowledge, but we can't always like for like.
Yeah.
So your alignment to your SDG is obviously SDG 5, which is gender equality, SDG 10, which is reducing inequality, and going backwards in the numbers to SDG 8, which is economic growth, decent work, and number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure.
Yes. Yeah. We get it right, fantastic. And I guess going back to, can't remember which number it is now, but actually looking at younger people, actually looking at the next generation of entrepreneurs as well, going into the schools and actually teaching them and looking at them from a mindset point of view about how they
for education, quality education.
They are, doing that entrepreneurial mindset, actually helping them to think, dream bigger, which is the program's called from the Rosy View, but actually it links back into the schools and Career Sense and other programs we do as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, Heather. Right, over to you, Lee. Yes, this is Lee Chambers. Tell us the name of your organisation and your objective, what you're aiming for, and your SDGs, obviously.
Oh, yeah. So I'm the founder of Essentialised Workplace Wellbeing, and a lot of what we do is helping businesses to build strategies in to ensure their teams are well. They're also looking at inclusiveness and organisational culture. And our big target SDG is SDG 3, health and wellbeing, and looking how to advance that. And obviously, we're in a world today where over 150 of the wealthiest entities are businesses, not nations. So businesses have an increasing responsibility to help move towards these targets in a positive way. Obviously, a lot of that kind of wealth has been generated through shareholder value and the way that's been pushed as a priority. But obviously, from the perspective of what we do, actually take companies and start them to consider stakeholder value, the different entities that they can, benefit through the work that they do and how they can build that impact. And one of those big ones is looking at their employees, looking at their health and well-being, how they can deliver that strategically as a business, how they can embed it within the culture, and how they can look at well-being across the diversity that lies around it. Some of the gendered health challenges that are present, and we do quite a lot of work on topics such as the menopause, for example, because we're actually looking at how intersectional well-being is and how well-being can become more inclusive, while also looking at the different aspects of well-being, including social well-being and environmental well-being as well.
That's great. And you mentioned intersectionality there. That is one thing that, that seems to that has risen to the top, hasn't it, of thinking about equality, diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity, I can't say it now. Say it for me, because I'll say something rude live.
Intersectionality.
Yes. That seems to have risen to the top now. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really important because so often when we're focusing on looking at a challenge, even within the SDGs themselves, it's easy to not see how what we're looking to achieve intersects with other SDGs, how quite often a number of SDGs can cluster together, have dots joined, and actually progress as a movement. And we live in a society where sometimes we become too focused on the problem, trying to find a solution, when actually we can move and bring things forward together. Our organisation collaborates with a lot of other organisations to be able to do that more effectively. And we can never face these challenges alone. That's the beauty of an event like this, coming together with people who target a number of different SDGs to see what we can potentially do together. And as an audience, I'd love you to think about that as well. Oh,
that's great. You're right. There are some SDGs that do cluster together, but some kind of like hang to one side, but are very, very important. That responsible consumption and production, that is really an important one to do with organizations and companies on how they produce items and how they actually dispose of the waste, which in turn affects climate action, life on land, life underwater, you know. So yes, you're right. Thank you so much, Lee. We'll come back to the zebra sofa. Did they notice the zebra sofa? We'll come
I
back.
don't think you can miss it.
You can't miss it. You can't miss it. Okay, I'm going to do a roll call of the people that we've got contributing today, because I didn't do the roll call, and I think it's only fair to do it. Now, of course, we've got people in different time zones coming on, so probably some are just waking up, some are just going to bed. Who knows? Hopefully Lisa Jones from the United States will be joining us soon. And she is the CEO and president of the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Foundation. Feluke Michael from Nigeria, I know she's here. I've seen little comments, especially when Professor Jackie did a quote in relation to Nelson Mandela. She got very excited. Okay, and Adam Rogers, I think he's New York based. He was in Geneva yesterday. Not that I'm stalking you, Adam, but I do know you were in Geneva yesterday with Matthias. So I don't know where he'll be joining us from. And he's got a great book out called Taking Action Online. And his SDGs he'll share with us when he comes on. We've heard from Matthias Burkhalter in Switzerland. He's the president of the Women's Brain Project, SDG 3 and SDG 10. And we've got Carol Hart from the GGA UK, and her campaigns are explaining SDGs to children, which is important and extremely vital. We're going to be talking about some projects together, Carol and I. And then we have Dee Russell Thomas. Dee Russell Thomas is not only a GGA UK director, she's also a deputy lieutenant for Gloucestershire, and she instigated and spearheaded the 12 months of kindness and projects. So she'll be coming up soon. Carol Copeland Thomas, Massachusetts in the house. So she'll be talking to us about the US-UK Summit on Race that I facilitated on, and some other things as well. I'm not sure she actually sleeps. We've heard from Professor Jackie Carter in the UK. Heather Waters and Lee Chambers are joining us in the studio, and they might, if they're good, get another Bakewell tart. So, without further ado, which is a weird phrase, I always say that, but it's a very, very weird phrase. We've watched the film Flip the Script, and now what we'll do is we'll go to... No, we won't. We're not going to go to Feluke yet. We're going to go to one of the GGAs, and we're going to go to Carol Hart. Carol Hart, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I certainly am. How are you?
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Have you got your tea and cake?
I certainly have. I've got it just sitting beside me. I came off night shift last night, but it's a pleasure to be here today. And it's extremely important to, been really looking forward to it.
Okay. Share with us what you do, your role in the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Foundation, and the projects and the SDGs that you champion. Share with that, Carol.
Yeah, I'm a Global Goodwill Ambassador Director for United Kingdom. My passion is all of the SDGs, but particularly well-being, health and well-being. And that's through my own experience with mental health as well. So I campaign throughout the UK, globally, and involve quite a lot of groups that we created during COVID to support young children and adults alike.
That's fantastic. And Carol, you've got some SDGs, how to explain SDGs to children, haven't you?
I certainly have. I think the first protocol would always be our lovely Chrissy Sykes from the My Body is My Body programme, because on the Global Goodwill Ambassador website there is absolutely a font of knowledge and courses, and they're all free long musical sing-alongs and things just to make it a lot more entertaining for the children. What we're doing at the minute is I actually work quite closely with a group called the Battle Buddy RV1 group, which was created by the lovely Mark Smelt during lockdown. And it was really just to support one another right across the globe in terms of mental health awareness, and which incorporates the SDG. Mm-hmm. So that incorporated getting people involved with the group on Facebook, doing little challenges if they so wish, in terms of press ups. You know, you could do 25 blinks if you wanted to. It was more like about getting them involved, getting the children involved. And so now we have little children, Battle Buddy RV ones, who come on and do the 25 days of 25 somethings, whether it's walking up and down the stairs, and encouraging their own friends as well. Certainly with the SDGs, there's a friendly leaflet which is really, really interesting in the United Nations, and it's a breakdown, and it sort of highlights to children again with Chrissy Sykes' My Body is My Body program, a very light-hearted way of explaining to children about the SDGs and how they can support. Like my colleague said, you know, if you're on holiday, take a bag with you, pick up rubbish and things like that along the way. Mm-hmm. And just learning to be aware of everything around you, as you know, as humans and adults are educating children along the way as well.
That's fantastic, Carol. There are some questions coming and comments coming quick and fast. You've got some fans out there, Carol. What have we got? We're going to hear from Sally. Let's see. You stay so that we can hear from Sally. What have we got?
Well, basically, there's My Body is on. So she was just been commenting and saying about how lovely it is to see you, and have one of the things that she's obviously very passionate about as well. And then we've also got Adam just saying that he agrees that responsible consumption and production is a very important SDG, especially with regards to what we eat. No Mammal Manifesto. So that's an interesting one, which we can touch on when we speak. We have a question from Kim Vaughan, but it's in relation to employers. So I wasn't sure if Heather perhaps could comment on this, and wider panel as well. Was around what are larger employers doing to align with the SDGs? Are there any good examples? And if there are examples, how can a single operator like me align most effectively with these worthy goals? Hashtag SDGs 2030.
I think we saved that for Adam, because we're going to have Adam on in a bit, and right. Adam has got some nuggets of wisdom.
Oh, right, good.
That we can save for Adam.
Good stuff.
So, Carol, it was lovely to hear from you. We'll come back to you because I know that people will have questions. But what I want to say is that myself, you, and Chrissy will be having a separate conversation in relation to sounds wrong. I went targeting children. What I meant to say was having an event like this that helps educators, parents, and children understand the Sustainable Development Goals, something like the Zebra Tribe Hangout for the SDGs, something like that we can craft together as a follow-up to this, and do it just before they break for the summer holidays. So that's something that they can do. Like I mentioned to what Mateus did with the bags and going on holiday and picking up the plastics, have some little, what can we do? 17 things in 17 days during the summer holidays, that kind of thing. So we'll look at that, and we'll have a chat later. Okay. I mean, it's like, I feel like I talk to you every day because we're on a group chat anyway. So it feels like I talk to you every day. Yeah. I'm not going to go to Dee. I'm going to go to Adam, because I'd like to bring Adam in. Adam, are you there?
Yes, but I'm still in Geneva, by the way.
Are you still in Geneva? Oh, right. Okay. He's made a comment, though. So he was. Come on, log in, Adam. We need you. Right. Okay. You've got a few minutes to log in, and I will bring Dee Russell Thomas in. Dee Russell Thomas, Deputy Lieutenant of Gloucestershire. Is that the right county, Dee?
It is. Would you like me to pretend to be Adam? No, Adam's lovely, but you're lovelier.
Well, welcome, my lovely. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Dee was wonderful in coming up with the idea of 12 months of kindness, but that's not what all of Dee is about. Dee, share with us what you do and your SDGs that you champion.
I think, like others have said, of the 17 SDGs, there are several that resonate with me, and of course, many of them do overlap. My personal focus would have been is on the SDG 4, quality education, SDG 5 and 10, gender equality and reducing inequality that go hand in hand, SDG 16, peace, justice and strong institutions, and 17, bringing it all together. Similar to Professor Jackie, as she said before, my background's education. I honestly believe that the key to the door of success has got to be education. So my background has been teaching and then being the head of the Race Equality and Diversity Service, working in areas of deprivation. So constantly looking at those young people, particularly, who are disadvantaged through no fault of their own, just by where they happen to have been born, what the colour of their skin might be, what their class might be, all those sorts of areas has been my focus. So as head of race equality, I have worked with travellers, with circus children, with EAL youngsters, new arrivals, refugees, asylum seekers. I've had living in my house Vietnamese, Burundians, Rwandans, Croatians, right across the board. And I'm back now. I would have liked to have thought that over these years, the problem had minimalised. And alas, we can see from what's happening today, it hasn't. And I'm now back working voluntary with refugees and asylum seekers, with Afghanis, and we're just opening our house up to Ukrainians.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
I don't know if anyone, thank you for that, Dee. I don't know if anyone can see, that's the wrong side, it's that side. That side, we have a digital on-screen graphic of the Your Manchester logo, which is normally pink, and during the crisis, we've turned it blue and yellow in support of the crisis in Ukraine. What I'd also like to say is that there are, you know, as Dee alluded to, there are also other conflicts and issues going on around the world. We're not forgetting those. People are still suffering, but of course, at the forefront of our mind is the crisis in the Ukraine and the Ukraine-Russian war. So thank you for that, Dee.
Can I also say that
yeah,
I'm also working with young Russians, and
yeah,
we mustn't forget there are so many innocent parties right across this whole horrible situation, and they are equally as frightened and equally as nervous about what the future holds for them, and they are innocent.
Yeah, no, I delivered so I guest lecture at the University of Manchester, and on a master's, and there were a couple of Russian students that were already here doing their masters, and they were nervous and worried as well, just because of people's reaction to them, and so there are innocent parties on both sides. Thanks, Dee. So can you share and explain the 12 months of kindness, the 2021 12 months of kindness that you whispered in my ear to contribute to, and many other global Goodwill ambassadors? Can you just share a little bit about that?
It started with the GGAs getting together to talk about ideas for the following year, which was last year. And I put forward 10 ideas, thinking that maybe one might be useful. And a number of people kindly said they'd like to do all of them. And then I suddenly thought, well, what if I add 2 more, and we could actually do 12, and we could focus on each one each month. So we had things like leaving books and bookmarks on doorsteps, sharing inspiring stories, putting together boxes and parcels of goodies and leaving them anonymously. And then I started collecting everybody's photographic evidence and thought it would be good to put it into a book. So over the year, and it did take the whole year, all those things were collected, and everybody, all the GGAs in the UK were fantastic. A lot were really involved, yourself included, and sent me photographs and gave me advice and pearls of wisdom. And each month I put them together, and it resulted in, here's one we had earlier. Can you see this? This booklet. And in the booklet, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that, it explains with posters that I made posters each month to explain what it was all about, so that anybody else can then do the same if they wish to do so. And that moved on to, I made a calendar. So you've got a calendar with all the posters that were made over the whole time. And people have taken it on board. It's been, I think, pretty successful, thanks to all the people who contributed. I just came up with the idea and put the stuff together at the end.
No, that's brilliant. So how can people get hold of it?
I think that's the difficulty. I personally had 30 odd copies printed at my own expense and distributed those to people who were interested. I've given it to the GGAs online. I'm not the most technical of people. I don't know how I managed to do that, actually. But whether other folk can then run with it, it is not owned by anyone. It's shared by all. So if anybody else wants that, and you know of a way that that can be shared, I've certainly given out the PDFs, etc., to yourself and others, and would love other people to get involved across the world. They can dip into it. I think what I've also done, actually, is I've done a training session on how to go about doing it and how to set it up in one's own community, should they wish to do so. And I believe that Lisa and Chrissy are hoping to put that onto the Institute of Learning GGA site.
Yeah. Well, if it's on the GGA Foundation site, it'd be great if you know, if it can be read online, a bit like how I think, like a digital book, like the Ambassadors magazine is read.
Yeah,
it would be, you know,
and that would be great, because so many people contributed to that, and there were so many ideas, and because it's visual, it's not hard, it's not heavy going, it's not like stuff that I've made, which can be a bit more heavy going to read. This one isn't, so that's good. Yeah.
No, it's a great.
Can I also say about the SDGs for young people, for children, of which Chrissy, as we all know, Chrissy Sykes has done a phenomenal amount on child protection, which is key to my heart as well. That's been important in my life for many, many years. My PhD was on breaking silence, and I work closely with her. And the work she's done on making the SDGs accessible to young people is phenomenal. I've written one of my quirky poems, which includes all the SDGs, for people to see if they can find them. And Chris has recently asked me if I can change it into a song, which is what I did for the GGA song, if you remember. So we've now got maybe a song in the offing, which is all about the SDGs, just to make it, because I think people get a bit daunted by thinking, we can't do this. What is it? What does it mean? It's too complex. And it isn't. And as we've said before, everybody can do something towards it. I have a quote: there is more good in the world than bad, and no matter how small our individual contributions of kindness together, we will impact as a whole. Give us a top 2022.
No, that's brilliant. That's another. You're gonna put that in the chat. So that's another one, another quote. I'm gonna be inundated with quotes. I love this. Lots of content. Dee, have you got your cup of tea?
Yeah.
Here we
cake.
are.
Have you got a cake of choice?
Oh,
and
cake of choice.
English.
Yes.
Oh, super.
Yeah, because this is international, you know, this is why the afternoon tea with the SDGs, this is what we do in the UK. We have afternoon tea.
Yes, every day.
Sorry, that was my really posh voice. Thank you, Dee. We'll come back to you when we need to. Some people will be asking questions. Adam, I know you're in Geneva. Adam Rogers, we do want to see you and we do want to hear from you.
I know, he's still not on. Don't think he's on.
And he's still not on.
We need to
But
try and find
we
him.
need you to talk to us about taking action online, and hope you've got a copy of your book and you've not given them all away at the event yesterday in Geneva. Right, okay. So it's going very well.
Aye, very well indeed. I'm just doing a few more comments, just making sure, keeping in touch with the audience.
The chat is going crazy. It really, really is. Well, Faluki Michael.
I'm here.
Hey, let's get all very, very excited. Shall I set you up,
Yeah.
Faluki Michael? Shall I describe who you are? Who is Faluki Michael? Goodness me. We've talked a couple of times, Faluki Michael. Faluki Michael is an absolute queen. She's a warrior, okay? She is internationally known for the person winning the Global Festival of Action Awards, okay, in 2018, I think the first awards. And this is a quote. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Action Award was a booster that activated us to further develop solutions to the world's most pressing problems. And that's a quote from Faluki Michael. Tell us about the SDGs. Tell us about you, and where are you at the moment? Can you hear us? Signal in Nigeria. Oh, is that a no?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Tell us about your projects, because you've done about, since we last spoke, since you were last on with me for this same afternoon tea, you've done about 6 projects, if not more.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. And Carol, you are a dynamite, and I'm so happy to be on this program, So the last time I was here on this program, we talked only about Solution 17 for climate action in Covenant University, That project is giving birth to a couple of other projects. And basically, we are working towards a very big goal, that is onboarding 5 million green enterprises and projects on a single digital platform by 2030. That is what we're working on right now. So it has layers. That's the major project. Then we have a couple of layers to achieving them. Now, sit back a little bit. I'm still a few. I'm still a future. I've got my cup of tea right here.
Nice.
So I've seen a future that we need to achieve. So for people listening to me, you will need to forget about trouble that will get you to achieving that desired future. You need to look at the future as very real. So that is what I'm looking at, that by September 2025, 2030, we are presenting 5 million green enterprises and projects to the world leaders in New York. That's the future. So how do we arrive at this future? And this is where I am. So let me just cite an example to let you know that this is achievable. In 2017, I'm a project management expert. So I love to develop projects and I love to implement them. So I developed this project. While developing the project, I told myself this project should win an award by 2030. Okay? So I wasn't looking at awards so soon. So we developed the project, and it was about anti-corruption, SDG 16, and we weave the entire goals together. They're actually related. Design the project. We use creative industry, like we use power of digitalization, animation, and all of that to bring forward what we have designed. That project was designed, and we had a couple of embassy joining us on that project. But you know what? Because I was determined. So I told my team, even though they felt it wasn't doable, but the truth is the power of positivity is what will apply in all our projects. So I managed to get them on board to believe what I believed. Let us call the long story short. What we believed was it was going to attract global attention, but not so soon, Carol, not so soon. So we put it up and someone nominated us for that award, the project, and 3 months down the line, the project was was chosen as the best 30. That was a good celebration for us because I wasn't looking at winning so soon. So we were invited over to Germany, and the project won as the best innovator out of 740 nominations across 126 countries around the world. Today, we have the project being replicated in Austria. We have it on UN website in New York as a good practice, success story, and inspiring breakthrough that will help the United Nations to achieve Sustainable Development Goal in 2030. The same energy that has gotten us that award is what we are putting in right now into 5 million enterprises by 2030. Guess what? Carol, the last 96 hours, I never knew I could be with you. You know, when you're trying to define project by paper, you don't know what comes on board. So I started, there's a movement, a big movement in Nigeria, and it's going through Africa right now. We're mobilizing secondary school students across Nigeria to start taking action on the SDGs. And how do we get them excited? We had to come up with planting the first phase of 100,000 trees. So on Tuesday, yes. So we are collaborating with Lagos State government at the moment. So we had to go from school to school. Since Tuesday till now, we have planted 202 trees in 4 schools.
Round of applause.
I was physically involved. I could tell you the aspect of growth. I could tell you what's seedling us, the organic manure we're using, the process of planting. Carol and Sally, SDG is truly possible. If those of us as champions decide right now and dare to dream big and mobilize people across the world, do you know that the platform for 5 million enterprises in Africa is ready? And we're just testing within our community. 60 businesses are onboarded as we speak. It's not launched. And so we are now getting across a lot of problems. We throw challenges to school, to university, to come up with a lot of solutions. Believe me, the 5 million will be like a child's play. We might be getting into 10 and 15 millions because everybody is interested. All they did not have is how to communicate the SDGs. How you communicate the SDGs to people around you. You have to live the SDGs. You have to talk the SDGs. You have to write the SDG. You have to live the SDG. You know?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Tattooed on your forehead, Feluke. So one of the things I read, so about almost 12 months to the day, from this studio, I did an event similar to this, whereby it was African trade and opening up to Africa. And it was the Pan-African Trade Summit that we did. And one of the things that came out of that was that Africa as a continent will have the youngest global population. Is this right? And is this what you're harnessing to actually achieve the goals and move forward?
Yes, so this is very correct. Let me tweak that statement a little bit. Africa has got so many problems. So solution providers can thrive in Africa for social impact and profit. Because we have young population of thinker, and they are not thinking at the moment. You know why? Because they do not see the solution, the problem as they have solutions to them. So you have to galvanize big action to enable them to think out of the box. I am telling you, problems are currently being transformed into sustainable solutions in this continent. Can I shock you? The problem of Africans can also largely be solved by Africans. What Africa do not have is the Africa heroes that will come forward and take the lead. As soon as you see one person, 2 and 10 taking the lead, you have many followers. That is what is happening right now. Meaning that if you have thriving solutions to problems and you have technology and innovation to drive them, you've got Africa in your hands. And you know, the society with so many problems, you are likely to thrive because you give solution to one and bat the other one and bat the other one. Africa, I totally agree with you. We have young population of thinker and we're good to go. We are mobilizing action, and I can assure you, more thinkers, more doers, more creators, more innovators are jumping on board. Let me share this with you, this little piece. About a few weeks ago, we were thinking that we're going to be having 100,000 trees. Does that mean that our team will be visiting the school? And some of them came up with global trackable tree device, okay? And so we brainstormed on that idea. Today, we're testing that solution, meaning, and it's going to be powered by AI. So meaning that all of these schools, we would have to embed our chip into all these trees, and we monitor them right from our offices across Nigeria. So meaning that we can always innovate and innovate and innovate until we have solutions that will solve the local problem and move to global. That's my perspective about that. You know, Carol and Sally.
And you know what? I think as well, we should start a bottling plant. And when I say a bottling plant, I'm going to call it Faluki Juice. Faluki Juice, the energy drink that creates solutions to the world and the SDGs. Because my goodness, girl, your energy is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I am always blown away. Do you know, a few months ago, Faluki and I worked through the night trying to work on a document together, time differences, and it was like a live document. And it was a great experience to try and work on something together to achieve a goal. And we're going to work on some other things together, aren't we, Faluki?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question, and I might ask this to all of our guests as well. How has the pandemic, because of course the pandemic came in and everything, it stopped, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Things paused, it stopped. How did you get over that? What happened to some of the projects that you were working on?
Okay, in January 2020, we flagged off Solution 17 for climate action in Africa, and pandemic happened. That is after we have booked spaces, innovation hubs, and all of that for our projects. That happened. You know, something about creative is you don't ever give up. I called my team and I said, look, we aren't going to postpone any of this program, because if we postpone, we don't know how long we're going to be locked in and out. And we had to bring all the program. That was the first time we had to bring our innovation hub, our lesson, our training hub, and all of that on virtual space. You know what? That project was, the first phase was ended very well with Amina Mohammed actually opening the exhibition that came out of that project. We never postponed that project. Look, pandemic was happening, you know, we were sympathetic with all the people around the world that are going through one thing or the other. Constantly we make posts, we talk to people about it, but then life must happen. Life, nobody stopped eating all through 2020. We were all eating, right? We're all drinking water, right? Life was moving forward. Producers were still producing food. They were producing the products and bringing them to the market. So no project must be put to stop for any pandemic, whether now or in the future. So it was absolutely done. Nothing was missing because technology drove the project. So with technology, we were able to achieve our aim. And you know, by end of 2020, I was back in London and I spoke to myself, what do I need to do? Because it was still on, we couldn't go out and all of that. Carol, that was when the idea of green entrepreneurs came. And right there in London in January, I registered for AA Academy, Publishing Academy. And by February, I had finished like 14 of my courses. But guess what? By April, my Green Entrepreneur was already on Amazon and Audible. All the projects that has been discussed in this book, The Green Entrepreneurs, are currently being implemented right here in Africa. So, pandemic was a problem.
Yeah.
Lot of initiatives were disrupted. But you know what? If you are a founder, you've got to move forward, because in pandemic brought about some other problem that you need to solve as a founder. So we can't just fold our hands, because a lot will still happen. So we need to be resilient and prepare for any other thing that will happen around the world. The biggest pandemic right now is climate crisis. You understand that right now. So if you know you have climate in your climate crisis that is looming around the world, we've got to prepare now and act for change, because I will end with action cannot wait.
Hashtag action cannot wait. And that's a Feluke Michael special hashtag. My dear, you have been an absolute juggernaut. That's all I'm going to say. You've been an absolute juggernaut, but that's what we want. That's what we need. We have to get on with it. Even though we've had a pandemic, the pandemic's still there. There's still issues. You know, we have to get on with it. We have to actually forge ahead. We're going to come back to you. The people are... There's lots of yays from lots of people in what you've said. Adam Rogers has said a couple of things as well. He's having some technical issues and he'll come on. You know Adam, don't you? You've met him.
Adam is my mentor. He's a big supporter of my vision, whatever it is that I'm doing. Adam is always like, Feluke, keep on doing that. And I've been learning from him as well. He's taking action online. It's a blessing, because I read that book. And that has been a blessing. Taking action online has taken me to do I'm a blogger right now. Carol, do you know that? I've never written and put out there. If you go to FelukeMichael.com, you see my blogs. I've written a whole lot of articles on climate change. That is what taking action online has pushed me to. Adam is very great, you know.
Yeah. No, I want to get hold of his book. He's kindly put me on his Sustainable Development Goal, the Champions thing, Global Champions online. I can't remember what it's called. He will tell me. He will tell me what it's called. I'm just so excited with all these people. Feluke, my dear, we'll come back to you. I know who's ready. Shall we go to Boston, Massachusetts? Let's go to Boston, Massachusetts. Have you noticed most of these guests are called Carol?
Yes. There's something in the name, I think, isn't there?
It means
powerhouse.
It means powerhouse and courageous one. I don't actually know what it means. Carol Copeland-Thomas, are you there from Boston? Is it Boston or just Massachusetts?
Well, interestingly, yes, I live outside of Boston, but today I am sitting at the dining room table of my older daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughters. They're out and about, but I am here. And so I'm representing two states now, Massachusetts and Connecticut, right next to each other.
I've got family in Connecticut.
Go and say hello.
Yeah. Go and say hello. Can I welcome Carol Copeland-Thomas? She'll tell you more about what she does. But one of the things I want to say is she has absolutely embraced me in this global US, UK conversation and summit on race. It wasn't so much aligned with the SDGs, but there is the SDG link in there. There's the SDG 10 with reducing inequalities. But I'm going to hand over to Carol Copeland-Thomas. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so very much, Carol Ann. You are my soul sister in Manchester. And even though you spell your name without an E and I spell my name with an E, I'm really grateful to be with you. I'm glad because I want to bring more Americans on this conversation about not just looking at the world, but looking at these specific issues. And these 17 sustainable development goals are really a jump off point of the conversations that we have to have. We're seeing right now with this awful war that's being waged against Ukraine, that this world is interconnected. And so it is important for all of us to understand, particularly my American friends, my American brothers and sisters, to understand how interconnected we are. And in order for us to reach those goals by 2030, then we have to really start working on them now and have a better sense of awareness of all the issues that are interconnected with each other. So I will, Carol Ann.
Oh, right.
We thought
We lost you then. Sorry,
Oh.
can you just say that again? Because
Sure.
I think
I was saying that I want to bring more Americans on board with this conversation. I am excited to be with you because I know the commitment that you have and your colleagues and what they have with the importance of these sustainability goals. So my goal is to help those I know in my network and those who are around the United States to jump on board and to actively play a part in reaching these goals by 2030.
From Adam in a bit. And Adam, although he's in Geneva at the moment because of an event yesterday, he is New York based. And, you know, we could talk, Carol, about doing something that's connected with the, you know, for the United States. I could join you and Adam could join you, and then we could put that together so that spreads the gospel in your network. How would that sound?
I love it. I think collaboration is the key. That's why I co-founded the US-UK Summit on Race last year with two colleagues here in the United States, Bill Wells and Denise Gray-Felder, and my very dear friend in Liverpool, Garth Dallas. And through Garth, that's how I met you. And you've been a very integral part of our program in terms of speaking and being a part of our facilitation staff. So we're looking at, and I really picked number 10, goal number 10, in terms of reducing inequalities within countries and externally as well, because it deals with race. I am a diversity professional and have been one for now 35 years. And so I've looked heavily into issues related to race and diversity and multiculturalism, and now equity is a very big topic. So it is so multi-layered in terms of what number 10 looks like, goal number 10 looks like, that I think it is just infused in the purpose of the US-UK Summit on Race, which looks at race, not just from a US perspective, but from a UK perspective, our uniquenesses and our similarities, and how we can forge ahead and look at things differently, even though we have individual, regional, district level, county level, province level, national level issues that are germane to those specific areas. But there's an awful lot of overlap, as we're seeing with each program that we're doing with the US-UK Summit on Race.
I don't know if you remember at the second to last US-UK Summit on Race, one of the things I said, we had a specialist talking about the Asian market. And throughout what she was talking about in relation to the Asian market, what I pointed out is in the UK, when we say the Asian market, we're talking India, Pakistan, and so on. Whereas the Asian market, that when you talk about the Asian market, you're talking about Korea, the Philippines, and whatever. So it's kind of it's the language as well is slightly differences, but similarities as well. I want to put in there as well that you should actually take on SDG 8. And SDG 8 is economic growth and decent work, and it promotes sustainable, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. And I think that comes into it as well.
They're all interrelated. I mean, the gender equity issue, all of the goals that we're talking about, even in terms of climate change and geographically where someone is living, and the housing fabrics that they're using in this country based on where people live, and if they're living in housing developments, they call them housing projects, buildings that are older. We have asbestos issues. We have issues in terms of lead paint and lead poisoning, which
Oh,
are
my goodness.
socioeconomically driven and connected to people of color. We call them Black and brown people in this country. So all of this is interrelated. And when you're looking at climate change issues, where sometimes plants are located, where utility factories are located, manufacturing facilities, sometimes very close to urban populations, that's climate change in terms of how things are going to change, and certainly in terms of weather patterns, et cetera. So they're all interrelated issues, and in many ways related to how race is a major factor, not just here in the United States, but certainly in Liverpool, in Manchester, in London, in Lagos, in Nairobi, in Kuala Lumpur, in all parts of the world.
Yeah. Very, very true. Very, very true. And what's next, Carol? One of the things I want to ask is what's next?
Thank you. Yeah, so much. We have so many projects going on here. Our next US-UK Summit on Race is June 3rd. June 3rd, I'll give you all the information. I'll put the link in the chat where the information can be had. We'll be talking about the intersection of Juneteenth, which is now a prominent holiday celebration here in the United States, celebrating the last slave state, Texas, that finally liberated their slaves well after the Civil War. This took place on June 19th, 1865, when finally, yes, after the Civil War ended in April of 1865, and finally the last slaves were finally liberated in June of 1865. So now there's a big celebration that goes on around the United States now called Juneteenth. And so we'll be discussing that, talking about that, and talking about the second anniversary of the execution of George Floyd. So it's going to be an amazing program. We are continuing our conversation about critical race theory, which is hot, heavy, and unfortunately things that are happening from a disturbing point of view, legislatively so, are also going to be part of that conversation, as it was a part of the conversation I had on March 10th with my multicultural symposium series.
Wow.
What's going on? A lot.
Thank you. There's a lot going on. Yes. Well, you put that information in the chat. Everyone will want to know about that.
In the main one, definitely.
In the main chat. One of the things I want to say is that, of course, this is recorded and we'll put it out again. This will be useful for a lot of people to share and reshare, learn from, and also to take people's names, get people's names so that they can actually contact. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So do you remember I said Adam had added me onto some list or something or other?
We can find out.
I've got a little thing here, which is hashtag SDG influencers and SDG champions. That's what I am. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam, for reminding me. I have no idea. Adam Rogers, welcome to.
Finally, we got you sorted.
Do you know what, Adam? That was worth the wait. That T-shirt is worth the wait.
Indeed.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, Carol, and it's great to be here. Sorry, it took me a little time to get a hold of the link to come into to be able to chat and speak with everyone. But I was following on the YouTube channel, and that's
you were. Thank you.
And admittedly, I did change my shirt when I realized I was coming on camera, because I think I wore this I may have worn it yesterday. Great. I'll have to admit, but I had this one, which was also good, but I thought the SDG.
Let's have a look.
And that's well, let's get this right.
Stand with Ukraine. Of course.
Well, I'm glad you've shown it. That's brilliant.
There we go. I stand with Ukraine.
Yes, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. You're a man of many T-shirts. And besides that, can I officially say hello?
Hello.
Because we've only text talked.
Again, be careful how you say.
Again, be careful how I say. We've text talked a lot, and it's nice to actually talk to you and see you as well. Please do. The floor is yours. Tell us about yourself and tell us about the fab book, which I need to get.
Oh, this one here. There's also this one here. This is about travel. It's called The Intrepid Traveler, the ultimate guide to responsible, ecological, and personal growth travel and tourism. But what I did when I retired from the UN in 2018 after 22 years of staff service. I was a consultant before, and I've been a consultant since, is I returned to writing. And the first book to come out was the third edition of this one, which is Travel and Sustainability. So when we travel, how to think about sustainability, but also think more about soulful travel, transformative travel that transforms us into more wholesome human beings, connecting with people, learning about their cultures, about their histories, about who they are, and about seeing humanity as one race. Getting back to our last guest talking about some of the racial tensions, when we can sort of look beyond people's skin, clothes, traditions, and connect with them as fellow human beings, I think the world becomes a much better place one at a time. So that was the first book. The other book that came out since I retired was about healthy food and a healthy planet and a healthy body. So choosing carefully what we produce and what we consume. Getting back to the SDG that you mentioned earlier about responsible consumption and production, and it's a discussion of mammals. And before I scare anybody off, any of my carnivore cousins, it's not about it's a discussion not about going cold turkey with the beef. It's about being aware of the repercussions, of the consequences, both on our bodies and on the planet and other people that we share this planet with, of eating too much. If we do too much of any good thing, it becomes not such a good thing. So if we can reduce, like even to beef, there's an Eat Lancet Commission study that came out a couple of years ago that I cite repeatedly in the book, that calculates the environmental, societal, and health costs of pretty much every kilo of beef that we may choose to consume. And it calculated that once a week, we can still maintain this balance with the planet. But if you know,
it's gone
0 a week, and then you're making it up for them too. The last book to come out just last year that was launched with ConnectAid, an organization that's here in Geneva. I'm on their board and I serve as their vice president in a volunteer position. But this one seeks to inspire everyone with a smartphone, with a computer, who may feel frustrated or knowing what's going on in Ukraine, or with the climate change, with gender inequalities, and with getting children into school, with poverty issues, with hunger issues, that we can actually do something, all of us, online in different capacities, depending on what our personal gifts are, our personal passions. Some of us may, get information online and go out and start a movement in our community. Some of us may want to contribute in some small way to an organization that is really making a tangible difference. It's how to start an organization maybe and get followers and getting supporters. I've got chapters in there on how, say, if with the government, how to change government policy, either radically or sometimes nudging in democracies, policy discussions in the right direction. So all of that, but each person's action will depend on their background, their abilities, their inspirations, their skill sets, etc. I think there are as many solutions to the SDGs as there are people, and it's when everyone can find their gifts, I think, and it helps us find out our purpose in life. If there's, so-called, when we find out what our gifts are, and we identify them, we refine them, we strengthen them and build on them and put them to work in supporting other people on this planet, addressing some of these challenges, then things sort of happen our way, that we feel more motivated. We start to feel more excited. Our worth isn't measured by how much money we have in the bank, or what kind of watch we have or shoes on our feet. But we really, I think when that happens, all the solutions in the world, I think in life in general, as a society, I don't think we're confronted with problems that are too big for us to overcome. And as a community, as a family, as individuals, we're confronted by challenges, and it's just a matter of finding the resources, the time, the ability, connecting with others to overcome them. I think we can overcome them, and by overcoming them, we become stronger, we become better, and we become more human in many ways. And I think the SDGs is like it's a roadmap, but it's more of a signpost. It's more of a signpost, I think, than a roadmap, because it's pointing the way toward the solutions. But we have to kind of take that look within and say, how can I contribute? And that's what this book seeks to do. And it has a foreword there by Helen Clark, was a former administrator of UNDP, my former boss's boss. I was a little bit down on the food chain, and the former prime minister of New Zealand.
Right.
Yeah. And so
okay. So UNDP. What's UNDP for people who don't know?
Yeah, the United Nations Development Program. We're sort of on the ground in 140 plus countries, where we're working with government partners to strengthen institutions and strengthen democracy, and helping countries sort of to strengthen their abilities to help themselves and find their own paths. So we don't have so much programs in country, but they're government programs that we're supporting. I still say we because I'm supporting I'm in Ukraine. I joined the Ukraine country team at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm still with them now remotely.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Sally, to my left, has been monitoring the chat, and she's got. Is it a question for?
Yeah,
Adam?
we had a question earlier that we thought you'd be well placed to answer alongside other colleagues on the panel. But it's Kim Vaughan has asked, what are larger employers doing to align with the SDGs? Are there any good examples? And are there any examples of how a single operator like me can align most effectively with these worthy goals?
Yeah, there's many big companies that are making a difference. I wish I could have prepared to bring out some, but if I bring out some and highlight some other ones, but there's the I think there's an organization here, the Business for Sustainability here in Geneva, and their website has a long list. The UN has a system for cataloging and assessing the SDG impacts. So some are getting involved because of good marketing, good positioning, maybe like greenwashing. But some are getting involved. Say it's sort of like British Petroleum that changed their name to Beyond Petroleum. They're still doing oil, but it's also a good business decision to start investing in alternative energy. So they're investing a lot in clean energies because it's the right thing to do. But it's also they see the market is going that way. So a lot of businesses they're either doing it because they want to look good and they want to look good to their consumers, and that's sort of more of a superficial. They're doing it because of business reasons, because they know the market's going that way, but also that and in the countries that are also adopting policies that force the private sector into say producing cars that get better gas mileage. I mean, now in the US, they're bringing it up to 40 miles per gallon, in the system that we use over there. That Biden is pushing that legislation now. But there's the oil companies, of course, and their lobbyists lobby governments to kind of keep it lower because then the cars will consume more petrol, and then they make more money. So if companies are doing it because of policies, they have no choice. If they're doing it because they can make more money, they see the market going that way, or if they're doing it because they're doing the right thing, the end result is that they're coming on board, and that's a good thing. Whether they'll come on board fast enough, and whether or not we can turn this around fast enough, I have to be optimistic. We have no choice. But
presumably,
even if I wasn't optimistic, I mean, if you're in a canoe on the river and you're going towards a big waterfall, right? And you have a choice, either be kick back and open a beer and say party on, and the end is coming, or you just paddle as much as you can. I tend to be one of those paddling as hard as I can until I'm exhausted and can paddle no longer. Because if I'm going over the edge, I want to know that I did everything I could to try to turn it around.
More power to you. I was just going to ask as a quick kind of sideline to that, because obviously the bigger organisations have usually got the budgets and the actual positioning to be able to make those demands and those kind of changes. What about the smaller side? Have you seen good examples of maybe what you call your smaller employers, the ones who perhaps are a little bit more agile but maybe don't have the budgets? Have you seen any kind of innovative ways there?
Yeah, again, rather than listing, there's an initiative called the Business Call to Action. That UNDP manages out of its office in Istanbul, out of the private sector division. And companies that are accepted have to be showing action. Every year they have to prove, but they have many case studies in there. So BCTA, that's even like a hashtag BCTA, Business Call to Action. It's a great resource for finding inspiring stories of many sectors. Small businesses in many sectors, and probably most of them in developing countries or in emerging markets.
That is interesting. That's very, very interesting. Like you say, developing countries and emerging markets, because here in the UK there's lots of social enterprise. I mean, we've got Heather from the enterprise team at NatWest, and there are a lot of social enterprises, aren't they, Heather, popping up, and community interest companies.
There is a huge amount, and we've actually got part of our accelerator program now have a cohort purely for purpose-led businesses. So the reason why they got set up, because they had a particular reason, a goal in mind, whether it's an environmental, sustainable, they had that as the mission. So they start with that mission in mind, and then they grow from there. So it's huge. And actually, Lee and I were talking before about the amount of B Corps being created at the moment. That's huge.
Yeah, you've heard of B Corp, haven't you, Adam?
Of which one? B Corp.
B Corp. Because we've got one here in Manchester. Very proud. I think there's two, but here in Manchester, Greater Manchester, we're very proud. There's a B Corp company called One for All, and they're a knitwear company, and they supply school uniforms for around the UK for the children around the UK, but also as well they do have workers in different markets. I think they have in Egypt and in India as well. But but the way they work, and they've actually the actual things you have to work towards to get the B Corp accreditation. It's not a greenwashing or anything like that. As you know, it's tough to get the B Corp accreditation, and Donald Moore and his team have done a fantastic job getting that. So what's next for Adam?
Oh, what's next? Not really sure. I'm still working on a few things. I'm doing some consulting, some more writing. I'm working on a book called Around the World in 80 Stories, where I picked 80 of the countries I've been to in my either in work or mostly in exploring. And I'm telling
Mr. Phileas Fogg.
A story about each of the 80 stories, 80 countries. So like in Ukraine, I'll talk about a tour I took of Chernobyl last October. And ironically and interesting to note, I sent a tweet out yesterday that the occupying army that was just there suddenly left because of they were digging trenches and they're all getting exposed to very extreme high levels of radiation. And I know exactly what that is, because when I took the tour, they pointed that forest out to us and said that nobody should ever go in there because of that's when they were dumping the water on the burning reactor back in 1986. The steam all went in that direction into that forest, and it's highly radioactive.
Wow.
So I'll talk about that in my in that chapter about Ukraine.
That's fascinating. Where can I, because it's all about me, where can I get your book, Adam? Where can anybody else get your book?
Available through many bookstores, but the Amazon.
Taking Action Online.
Yeah, this one here, Taking Action Online for the Environment, Social Justice, and Sustainable Development. It's really the SDGs, as you'll see the logos here. But because I wrote this in the US and I was also targeting, it's US English, which my British friends can understand because there's only a few letters that are switched. And in the US, I wish we were more, and in Canada, I grew up in Canada in the Yukon Territory by Alaska, but we're not as familiar with the SDGs as we should be. So I'm also advocating. So all my books, I talk about the SDGs. In the travel book, I talk about within travel, how you can be aware and contribute to the SDGs. On the book about diets, how those relate to the SDGs. And this one is the SDGs. But Amazon, although many ways we can complain about them in different ways I think they're getting better at treating their employees overall. But the advent of Amazon was really good for the environment in that when you go to amazon.co.uk, what happens is they print the book locally and ship it locally. So it's not the books are being printed, and they make all the books available in various e-formats for very cheap, just a couple of pounds. Right? And the book's a little bit more, maybe 10 pounds sterling. If you order from amazon.fr in France, it's printed there and shipped locally. Amazon.de for Germany is printed there and shipped locally. And so that's why I prefer, I would say, go to Amazon. But of course, there are other stores, it's Barnes and Noble, etc. But
that is commendable from their point of view, actually, doing it locally and reducing their carbon footprint in that way by actually producing it, developing it locally. I want to just a quick introduction to you. Well, Faluki. She said you're her mentor, which I thought that was amazing. I can see why.
I'm glad to be her mentor. I'm a very active.
I can see why. And also, Carol Copeland-Thomas was on before you, and she's still on. She's still there, and she's talking about the American market and understanding the SDGs and her network. So I'm going to try and talk to you and to join Carol to try and work with her to actually connect with her network and do something that helps them understand the Sustainable Development Goals. Because turning to Sally, what was the percentages when we put out there about what people knew about the Sustainable Development Goals? What came up?
Well, on one hand, not surprising, but surprisingly as well, was that there was about 33% of people that had said that they really don't know anything about them at all. And then the next sort of majority was around 27%, 29%, who said, you know, a little bit. And then in contrast, that was then sort of showing up around 27% who said they knew quite a lot about them. So there is this real contrast between who knows them versus who doesn't. And unfortunately, on one hand, I mean, that was across our sort of LinkedIn networks and Twitter a little bit in terms of the sample. But it is interesting how there is still quite a lot of work to be done to try and help and make people understand, but also to recognise how they can still contribute, like we've been talking about today, those little steps, those little things that we can do ourselves, which is becoming more familiar, I think, in most people's eyes, particularly around climate change. So it's just maybe tweaking and adding those different types of goals alongside that. So yeah, it was quite interesting.
Yeah, because I think, Adam, some SDGs come across like the poor relation. I don't know if you think that. I do, because people talk about I call it the cluster of the, I mean, you know, there are clusters, like I've said before, the 13, 14 and 15, climate action, life underwater, life on land cluster, you know, 5 and 10, gender equality, reducing inequality. There are these clusters, quality education and health and well-being seem to come together, but clean water seems to be not connected with poverty.
Yeah.
When really it should be. There are all these sort of different ones that seem like correlation, and of course about the consumption, productivity and consumption. Anyway, Adam, over to you.
I was going to say, if I may, I just put up actually chapter 1 of this book for free on my website, which explains the background of the SDGs, how they came to be, and then I go kind of into detail, but not in sort of technical detail and jargon, but explaining each one, and also with a quote. And I just put that up a few days ago to make it available, and ultimately I'll put them all up. It's just a matter of time of getting them. You know, I have to format.
Can you put your website details in the main chat?
Yeah, on the channel. That would be really helpful.
It's Adam Rogers. When I do that, I get I'd have to turn the volume off, because then I start getting an echo of the two.
Yeah. Do when you're muted.
Yeah, Adam Rogers is one. Oh, if I mute it. Oh yeah, I could do that when I'm muted. Hold on a second.
Yeah, when you're off screen, you can do it. It'll be fine. Thank you. It'll be all right for them.
But Adam Rogers online. ON. LINE .online instead of .com or anything like that. So just
right, okay, got you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on, Adam. Thank you so much for dressing appropriately.
Yes,
I'm quite impressed. But have you got a drink though?
Yes. Did you bring a cup of tea or a beverage of choice with the cake?
Beverage of choice. Oh.
He said it says multicultural, so I have my espresso, but it's all
espresso.
Fabulous.
Brilliant.
Well, we'll send you Cherry Bakewell vibes as well.
Yeah. And you and I will keep talking, Adam.
Yes, we will.
Yeah? We'll keep talking online.
And I hope keep moving up on the. If I may say about the list, that you're on the SDG champions list. I found you and put you there, but people can come and apply, and then weekly I go and see the applications, and I look for somebody having hashtag SDGs in their Twitter bio, and that there's tweeting and communicating on social media about sustainability. And it's a really good feedback mechanism to see how you move up each week in response to some activities. And so I encourage everyone to join.
That's your action.
Is Adam telling me off online?
Yes, I think he is. And rightly so. It's action.
Taking action.
Okay. All right. So we are kind of wrapping up.
I know. Gosh, can I believe it?
I cannot believe that we've got to the end. I wanted to end with a bit of music, and in 2020. We did this event because it had been locked down, and we were still locked down in 2020 for the United Nations 75th anniversary. We did this at the studio in college with some of my students, my event students. They needed to actually work on something, and this was a great thing to work on. So I had event students, media students, and I also had vocal artist students as well. And I think what we'll do is we'll end on one of the vocal artists who did her interpretation of Imagine by John Lennon. But before we do that, I just want to say, and I've written down what I want to say and what I want to share to you, is that we are at an inflection point for people and planet, one that is testing our very humanity, solidarity and progress on sustainable development. People everywhere are now demanding a better future for our world, while the current moment of global crisis poses great risks. It also offers the opportunity for sweeping, systematic changes on the scale being demanded by so many people and required to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. This event is a precursor to lots of other events out there, especially one that we're thinking about how to explain the SDGs to children. I mentioned the Zebra Tribe SDG Hangout, still fleshing that out, still want to talk to Chrissy and to Carol of my fellow Global Goodwill ambassadors about that. It's a children's conference, understanding the goals, to educators, parents, and to, of course, children. Local heroes for Global Goals Summit, that's another thing we're looking at. Great things are happening behind the scenes. You've heard the energy from all of them. Faluki Michael, Carol Hart, Dee Russell Thomas, and many, many more. Carol Copeland now is working things round to engage her network. Okay? Don't despair and think they're not working. We're here to spread the gospel and inspire others. We are resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and want, and to heal, secure our planet. We are determined to take the bold, transformative steps which are urgently needed, to shift the world onto a sustainable, resilient path. As we embark on this collective journey, we pledge that no one will be left behind. And that was said at the United Nations in Paris in relation to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I'd like to add to that, don't leave it to the few. Don't leave it to the individuals who do basically do this for profit, looking for the shortcuts at the expense of others and for planet. All the ones trying to greenwash, whitewash, or blackwash. We're over the halfway point. We've got 7 years, I'm not counting 2022. Let's start with 2023. We've got 7 full years to go. Let's flip the script. It's simple. If you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, we will go together. Thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to our guests in the studio, Heather and Lee. You've been great. Your details will be put out there so people can contact you if they need any information. We are going to hear from
Rakaya B.
Rakaya B. But I want to thank my co-pilot. I'm looking at you. My co-pilot. Hey, you can come again.
Can I?
You can.
Oh, lovely, thanks.
You can come again. 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 169 targets. There's a lot to do in 7 years. Roll VT. Where's Rakaya? I need her at the mic. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Hello.
She's not shy, I tell you, honestly. I'm gonna leave the floor to Lockdown Locks. Rakaya B, over to you, girl.
Bet these earphones look daft on me. Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's fine. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Oh, do you know what? Rakaya B, she's out there in the world doing what she's doing. That's one of my former students. I thought it'd be lovely to sort of roll and end with that. You know, her interpretation of that song was absolutely beautiful. And you saw the shot of all the different panel members from the 2020 UN 75 anniversary event. Roll call now. I want to say thank you to Faluki Michael, Adam Rogers, Matthias Burkhalter, Carol Hart, D. Russell Thomas, Carol Copeland Thomas. I told you there's lots of Carols.
I know, I'm going to be careful.
Professor Jackie Carter, Heather Waters in the studio, and Lee Chambers. Any last words from anyone? You know I like to give the floor. It's not all about Sally and I. Anybody want to say anything from our panel?
Continue to push the word, advocate, help people to understand what the issues are, because so many people are either confused, they don't know what's going on, and they don't know how it impacts them. So just continue to educate and inspire and empower.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes, and I would like to also say that we should focus on SDG 1 and 2, because the war in Ukraine will, as I said before, mainly be on the shoulders of the poorest and the most vulnerable. And we have to concentrate that this will not happen. And we should also be not so greedy to get all the grains available on the market. We should equally distribute it all over the world.
That's right. SDG 1, no poverty. SDG 2, zero hunger.
Yeah, very important.
Thank you,
and,
Matthias.
And we should not do the same mistake we've done with the vaccines.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Lee in the studio? Do you want to say any last thing?
Yeah, so no, very much appreciative of you all tuning in. And yeah, collaboration is key. Action is important, but more than anything, doing it together, driving forward, building an increased momentum, making a significant change.
Well said. Thank you.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. That's everybody, isn't it? Can we end with flip the script, please? And studio out, panel, please stay on until we go off air. Let's flip the script.
Hello, Lois. Want me to go over there with you?